So when I do fly solo, when Justin is out becoming the next Craig Way, I do like to bring in those that do this as well. And a guy I've been wanting to have on for quite some time joins me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. He is the host of the Mat Men podcast, which is part of the Wrestling Observer Network. Does a great job there and has been breaking a lot of stories. So, I got to get with him on what's happening in NXT and WWE and AEW. He is Andrew Zarian. Follow him on Twitter at Andrew Zarian. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Mat Men Podcast. Andrew, it is great to connect with you.
Hey, it's great to be here. I you sent me the message and I was like, hey, I was waiting for this.
Really? Well, I appreciate that.
Of course. Listen, you guys do a tremendous job and total professional operation there. So anytime there's somebody with a broadcasting background and with the pipes that you have, I'm like, I want to be on. Let's do it.
Well, I appreciate that. We're lucky enough. We get Mike Sempervive on from time to time, and he's great. I always call him the voice of reason for Wrestling Observer Live. So it's great to have another arm of Wrestling Observer with me. So let's start with what we heard on Friday during SmackDown of all times. 13 NXT talents were released by WWE, including Bronson Reed, who was just the North American champion, Bobby Fish, one half of that longtime tag team with Kyle O'Reilly, formerly known as Red Dragon, Mercedes Martinez, and 10 others. When did you, because you guys at Wrestling Observer are really connected, so when did you first start hearing the rumblings or the hints that there were going to be cuts, and especially like this?
It actually goes back far beyond this set of cuts. When the first cuts came, I was told, like, without any hesitation, that this wasn't it. There were more cuts coming. This was just the beginning, and this is something that people need to get used to, that they will be releasing people on the regular rather than hoarding talent. So I guess whatever it was that first set, and then every time that it happened, another one, I was told, hey, there's more coming. And last week, I was away. I was on vacation all week. So I had no idea it was coming this week. But I started hearing rumblings a couple days prior from people asking me if I've heard anything. And that's what I kind of figured it out, that, okay, something is happening. Actually, I had no idea it was going to be an NXT release. I was anticipating an NXT UK release because that's what I was told months ago. So I don't know if that's still going to happen or if they changed course here, but they are letting people go, and this was a little surprising considering NXT is in a tough position right now to rebuild talent, rebuild the brand, and I thought they were doing a decent job since they went to Tuesdays, but I guess not good enough.
Apparently not. You mentioned the cuts becoming a regular thing so far. In 2021 so far, just in the last 7.5 months. Over 40 wrestlers have been released by WWE. That is astounding to hear that. And I think I heard something about since the pandemic began, they've cut over 100 wrestlers.
Yeah. I would say, there's a lot of rumors regarding a sale that started around that time. When you're seeing corporate restructuring happening and releases happening, your automatic thing is, oh, okay, they're getting ready for a sale. I've been part of a terrible merger once, and it was very reminiscent of that. But this could also be them preparing for the next, I guess, 2 to 3 years with, the uncertainty of what's going to happen, economic uncertainty, traveling uncertainty, touring uncertainty, venue uncertainty. So I think we're leaning towards that a little bit more, where they're trying to cut the fat. We may not agree with it, but these guys are assessing their P&Ls. They're going through their budgeting. They're going through all this, and this is what Nick Khan is amazing at, is corporate restructuring and budgeting and things like that. He's a financial guy. So I think this is part of that. I think they're realizing that the hoarding of talent was not a positive on the company. The fact that you have X amount of writers, let's just throw a number of 10. It's more than that, obviously, but let's just say 10 writers, and you have 100 talent. What's easier to write for? 25 to 40 of them or 100 of them? And that's where I'm leaning towards, that they're trimming a little bit of the fat, not necessarily, some of those guys should be there, should not be released, and they're going to kind of restructure the company and see where it goes and shuffle talent around.
And that kind of leads to the bigger picture about NXT, because we've heard the rumors and the rumor innuendo, and what we've heard from the Wrestling Observer and Fightful and Wrestling Inc. and others, that there is this thought that NXT is going to go through some changes, whether it's, they want to get bigger guys, they want to get younger guys. We might even see a change in the, shall we say, theme of NXT. Speak for a minute about that, about what you guys have heard, and is this the beginning of the end of NXT as a third brand?
That's a great question, because they stumbled into this third brand thing almost accidentally. I don't think they ever anticipated that NXT would be selling out large arenas like the Barclays Center and everywhere else that they've gone. Even in Dallas, they sold out big arenas. I don't think they anticipated that when they conceptually figured out what NXT was going to be. I think originally it was going to be developmental, where you have a couple guys that are really big stars. You can move some of those guys like Tyson Kidd down and Cesaro down to help out and assist. But the concept of having a Nakamura there, or a Finn Balor, or Kevin Owens, that came later. And really, that was the beginning, right? That was the beginning of that. Oh, wow. We're able to draw 5,000 people, 6,000 people, 10,000 people, and continue from there. Unfortunately, everything else started suffering, right? Their main roster viewership started going down, and you need to move that talent. You need to move those guys because they want to make more money. They don't want to stay on a 1-hour television show that's pre-recorded every week. So they started moving those guys up and did not prepare homegrown talent to kind of fit that spot. And kind of that's where we're at. The last set of guys that came up, really, that was the final core, and that's Keith Lee and Matt Riddle, which was surprising to me considering they were competing against AEW at that point. So I think the initial concept went away, and they became this third brand, very successful. But now I think everything is up in the air. I don't anticipate it to be falling apart. I don't anticipate NXT to just be unknown 25-year-olds. I think they're going to stick to what they do well. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the concept of a guy staying there for 2 to 3 years. I think that's going to be gone. I think that's the biggest change I anticipate.
So, you hear about this stuff about possibly getting, they don't want stars staying there for an extended time. They want to change kind of the atmosphere. So then, my mind goes to the, logical conclusion. So if they are going to go back to doing what they did prior to, say, 2015, which is develop talent, get them ready for Raw or SmackDown, could you see a day when WWE or USA Network decides, you know what? I think we can put something else on Tuesday nights?
It's always possible. In talking to people at USA Network, I didn't hear any word of cancellations or rating. Actually, they're not disappointed with the ratings. I don't. That's a narrative that I saw out there, that USA Network's fuming, NBC's fuming at the ratings. That's not true. Their ratings are actually pretty good when they're on Tuesday nights. Last 2 weeks, obviously they were moved to Sci-Fi, but generally 700,000 viewers. That's a good viewership for NBC, for USA Network. WWE's their biggest partner right now, with consistently putting out content every single week. So we're not at that point, but I can't see them saying like, hey, listen, we should maybe move this to Peacock eventually. You know, if the numbers don't improve, they get worse, or the relationship kind of weakens, I could see them saying, you know, let's just put this on the WWE Network. And to be honest, that may be the best thing if you are becoming a developmental territory again. You want to record one, you know, in one day, 4 weeks worth, put out your product, and then work on it from there. 2 hours with a developmental product doesn't really make sense every week on live TV.
I agree with you. I think that, you know, I think we all can figure out, you know, this was done because there was another kid on the block. AEW is about to jump on television on a major cable network, TNT, and for whatever reason, WWE wanted to battle that, if it left for lack of a better term. And you know, and I'm not a big fan of, you know, the talk about, well, AEW won the war and NXT lost the war. I don't know that it was. I mean, yeah, there was a battle, but it wasn't. I don't know. It just didn't feel. You know, I'll you know, you always compare it to the Monday Night Wars with WWE and WCW. It didn't have that kind of same feel, whether it was because of the star power or whatever. I just think it was a matter of AEW, new kid on the block. Everybody wanted to see what was happening there. And NXT, you know, was trying to, it almost felt like NXT was trying to book to get the rating on Wednesday nights rather than stick to long-term booking, get towards a takeover and go from there.
You know, when they went on Wednesday, because they were on Wednesdays before AEW, right? We all knew they were going on Wednesdays. Everybody within the television industry knew, because ad salespeople were talking. Back in January or February of 2018, I had a couple drinks with somebody from Warner Media, and you know, couple drinks turns into a lot of drinks, and they start saying stuff. And I mean, point blank, he said, "Oh no, this is going to happen. This is going to happen, and we're very ready for it." So the Warner Media side was really gung-ho, and they knew that they had something special. I mean, this is in the beginning, right? They could feel the momentum and the buzz happening. WWE, however, did a retaliatory measure, a defensive measure, I should say. Putting NXT on Wednesdays was not about ratings. The intention of having 1 million people watching NXT on a Wednesday was never part of it. However, part of it was, we can't let these guys get to 1 million viewers. And listen, I don't know if that was 100% the narrative happening, but over and over again, I was told from people from the NBC side and the WWE side, we'll talk about AEW and their ratings when they could do over 1 million for 6 weeks straight. That's constantly what I was told. If they could do it for anybody, you know what? We could hotshot an angle. We could hotshot an episode 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row. But it's very difficult 6 weeks in to be consistently doing 1 million plus. We're at week 4 right now and entering week 5 for AEW. And they may be in the $1 million. You know what? They should be in $1 million range. They're in the million viewers range. And NXT, you know, for all that it is and all the negative people say about the current product in NXT, they're still doing 750,000 people. And that's not something to look down at. I think that's a tremendous number to do, especially if you are a developmental company. You don't have the talent that AEW does currently. You also don't travel, so the aesthetics of your product look a little lower than AEW. You know, I feel like in a weird way, it hurt the AEW performers and the NXT performers and NXT TV competing next to each other on the same night, because you're channel surfing. Listen, I grew up through the Monday Night War. Mm-hmm. It's a war. Remember, it's not the war. Stephanie McMahon will get very upset if we call it the Monday Night Wars. Do you know about that? You can't say Monday Night Wars.
That. Look, you and I both been in broadcasting long enough. You know, it was forever. You know, we'd call like what was his name? Roy Oswalt instead of Oswalt.
Yeah.
He was pitching for the Astros, and before that, here in the Austin area for the Round Rock Express. So, fine.
Yeah.
Stephanie doesn't pay me. Now, if she wants to,
I'll take it. Yeah.
hey, I'll say it however you want. But hey, I'm a radio guy. We don't, we'll take money.
Oh, wait till you get a copy from them. I got a copy. I had a Snickers ad once, and I had a copy, and over and over again it said, "Do not say the WWE. It's not the WWE. It's WWE."
Right.
So, their vernacular is very specific to them. But with that said, I think the retaliatory or the defensive measure hurt them in the long run. I think short term it didn't really affect them that much because it was still buzzing. NXT was still buzzing, but in the long term now that we see what AEW is doing, and they're really on a hot streak right now, regardless of you being a fan or not of the product. I could understand, maybe it's not your flavor, but you cannot deny the hot streak that this company is on.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew Zarian from the Matman podcast joining me here on Sports Guys Talking Wrestling on the Horn. And it's funny we talked about, the NBC Universal, because I think a lot of people were thinking with all those, the alleged sale rumors of WWE that NBC Universal would be kind of first in line with the relationship they've had for so long. Right now, SmackDown's about the only property they don't have because it's on Fox. So I can understand that, and I'll put it to you. I know those rumors have died down, but I would let's say in the next, I'll give it 5 years. 5 years, WWE is bought by NBC Universal.
That makes the most sense, right?
Yeah,
that makes in reality. I mean, if you look at it, they're really in bed with them. They are their pay-per-view provider. They are their streaming provider. They have 2 of their properties on there. They're doing all this stuff with NBC, and which is fascinating because at the time of the negotiation, the story was that an NBC came out and said we would love to have SmackDown. We just can't afford. We can't afford SmackDown. We can't afford another. Whatever that $400 million a year or whatever it was. To spend that kind of money. But sometimes the fear of missing out kind of pushes you in a direction, and they're in bed even heavier now than they were. So I guarantee you they definitely want SmackDown. It's just a matter of financials, and we'll find out when that contract ends what Fox is going to do because, not that I've heard that Fox is unhappy with the ratings, but, you kind of want to be in that 3 million to 4 million range on a Friday night because the previous show that was on was doing about 3 million viewers at the time.
Right. And especially you're on network TV, you're on over-the-air TV rather than cable. So, yeah, you expect bigger things. Granted, I think nowadays most everybody has cable. That's not as big of a separation as it used to be. So, one of the big stars in NXT, Adam Cole. And boy, there has been a lot of talk about Adam Cole ever since the word came out that his contract expired. He's working on an extension. So, the rumor innuendo was saying that Adam Cole met with Vince as recent as this past Friday, before SmackDown. I'm sure there was a pitch done, all this good stuff. And call me cynical. I've heard this before. It's kind of like baseball trade rumors or football free agency, where you might get this great star for your team and then they sign somewhere else. So odds that Adam Cole stays with WWE and we do see him eventually on Raw or SmackDown.
I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to go against what I think he would love to be traveling with Britt Baker, to being part of the same company. I think that obviously that plays a huge part in this. However, he's really smart. Adam Cole's not a dumb guy. And WWE's done great by him. If you really look at it, they've really taken care of him. I can't think of any terrible booking they put him in from the beginning that he entered that company. He was positioned in a top spot, North American Championship. He had the stable, had the title. So and by the way, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, huge advocates for him. They think he is something very special, which he is. I don't see him leaving. I don't see him leaving. If the money rumors are true, if that's a reality, what they're the rumors of $1 million contract, I would say the smart bet is to go there. And some of the rumors out there was that there's no big plans for him, right? I believe one of the wrestling sites said, they had sources that confirmed that there are no big plans for Adam Cole. So, this whole Vince meeting thing may not be as positive as possible. Well, yeah, I could tell you, they will come up with plans. They probably don't have big plans because this kind of came out of nowhere, this Adam Cole contract situation. Especially for a lot of people. I don't think they anticipated on it leading this close or the contract expiring and having to do a small time extension and work through SummerSlam. I think this was a slip up in some way that they weren't able to get this done. And the ball's in his court. And I don't see them throwing $1 million and saying, okay, now we're not going to do anything with you. It may not be up to our standard of booking for Adam Cole, but I don't see WWE just putting him in preliminary matches and having him lose to everybody when he's making that kind of money on a big time debut. This is a big story.
Well, and I totally get that. And like I said, I just deep down inside, I'm thinking he's staying. He's going to stay. He'll finish out whatever he's got with NXT. We'll see him on Raw and SmackDown probably before the end of the year. I would even bet probably by Survivor Series. How and something that came up when you were talking about that with the the alleged offers, because yes, we know Vince is very wealthy, WWE is very wealthy, but the owner of AEW isn't exactly a pauper.
No,
Tony Khan, the Khan family, they're pretty rich too.
Yeah.
And I know it don't take that much to run the Jacksonville Jaguars, except for their flights to London and back for those NFL games in London. They might be called the London Jaguars before we know it. And, and with everything Fulham FC and everything. But hey, I think Tony might be able to come pretty close to matching checkbooks with Vince. Is that a perception that is held by many?
I don't think there's ever been the as far as I've heard, I haven't heard the perception of, oh, well, he can't afford him. That hasn't happened yet. We haven't heard that. I did hear that about Brock Lesnar initially when he was, open from his contract. And I do believe that you wouldn't want to spend that kind of money on Brock because you don't know what kind of return you're going to get because you're still a new product. The WWE's assessment of Brock's value is that Brock is really valuable, but you also have a 75-year, 60-year business that you're piggybacking on, that you have already grown in name recognition. So I think but what happens? And it's a good question. I want to ask you because I'm curious, with the potential Daniel Bryan signing and the CM Punk signing and Andrade's there and Aleister Black's there and everybody else that went over, what happens to an Adam Cole? Does he just fall into a mid-card positioning until they can figure out what they're going to do, or do they skyrocket him to the moon? I think he probably feels that he has better positioning within WWE due to his comfort level to kind of push and get what he wants. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. That's a total positive thing because he has a long-term relationship with them at this point. So I don't know. I don't know how they would book him in AEW or his success rate in AEW. Listen, the guy's super successful. He's phenomenal. He'll do well anywhere. But, same question for an AJ Styles. What would have AJ Styles have done if he went to AEW compared to being in WWE?
You're right. And there is only so much room at the top of the card. So with all the talent that AEW has now, and I think last time I looked, I think they're over 100 wrestlers on their roster. And with 2 hours of Dynamite and I think as of now 1 hour of Rampage plus Dark and Dark Elevation, I mean, there's only so much. It's kind of the same conundrum as when you have a star wide receiver, you can only throw the ball to him so many times. So let me ask your thoughts on what we have so far for NXT TakeOver 36 coming up Sunday, August 22nd at the Capitol Wrestling Center. By the way, there were rumors apparently they were thinking about going to Vegas for this. Was that ever anything?
Initially, they wanted to be in Vegas with SummerSlam because you have 45,000, 50,000 people traveling to one location. Of course, they're going to want to stay and go to another show, or do the show on a Friday, Saturday if it wasn't. I think initially they were going to plan on doing them together, but because of the Saturday stadium move, that put a conundrum in the situation where, well, is NXT strong enough for people to stay? I think it was, but there was a venue issue for them at that point. They had some venue issues. They didn't know what they were doing. The last rumor that they were going to go there was, in my opinion, it was a nonsense rumor because you've already sold your tickets for SummerSlam. People have bought their plane tickets back. So you're not going to convince people. First of all, you can't get a last minute ticket to Vegas. I'm telling you right now, I'm flying Spirit Air to Vegas, which is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'll accept that because I am dreading this flight because there was no flights. A JetBlue flight a month ago was like $900 each way.
Good Lord.
So I'm flying Spirit because of this. There were no tickets available. So if you move it to Vegas, you better hope that Las Vegas is a real hot territory for NXT because the traveling is going to be very difficult to go. So they're sticking in Orlando. I mean, they're going to do Florida.
Yeah, I bet you. So give me your thoughts right now as it's booked. Karrion Kross defends the NXT Championship against Samoa Joe. Raquel Gonzalez is going to defend against Dakota Kai, the NXT Women's Championship. You got Walter and Ilya Dragunov for the UK Championship. It's expected we'll see Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly. Give me your thoughts on this card, and I know we'll probably find out some more when NXT airs.
Yeah,
but you're up, down, you feeling good about it?
I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle here. It looks. I mean, listen, Walter and Dragunov would be phenomenal. That's going to be a great hard hitting match. Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe should be a phenomenal match. Raquel and Dakota Kai, another good match. I mean, there's nothing wrong with these matches. It's just, is doing it from that building going to create some sort of buzz that this is a major show? You know what? Watching the show, we're all going to watch it. We're going to say, man, that was really good. It's rare. 36. There's been 36 of these takeovers, and I would say maybe one or two I wasn't really into in the early days. So I think it'll be a home run. We'll find out what's happening with Adam Cole for sure with this. That's a big story. And also if Karrion Kross retains or loses to Samoa Joe, because, do you put the title on Joe? Who's the number one contender now for it?
Yeah, you're right. And with, the possibility of Karrion Kross going to the main roster, there's been talk about Raquel Gonzalez going to the main roster. So is it time to take the belts off of them so they can make that move?
Is Walter staying?
Stay. Yeah, that's true. And in SummerSlam, I got odds. I got the current betting odds from betonline.ag. Right now, their odds, it's not like a blowaway, but the money right now is leaning towards everybody keeping their titles. And that's including Nikki Ash or ASH or whatever you want. Nikki Cross.
They go back and forth.
Yeah.
Depending on the week.
Yeah. You got, I think it's kind of interesting that the odds right now say no titles change hands. And we'll do our preview next week on the show, but let me get a couple things. Number one, do you see any titles changing? Number two, does Big E cash in?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because you look at this card and it's kind of set up that the challengers don't win the titles. Except for the Nikki Ash one. I mean, I could see that going back to Charlotte or Rhea. There's rumors that Becky Lynch is going to be there. So does Becky play a part in this? Does she show up? There's a lot of those moving parts. John Cena and Roman Reigns, they have not mentioned John Cena beating Flair's record at all throughout this entire thing. And that is very much not WWE if John Cena is winning. So obviously Roman right there, Bobby Lashley and Goldberg. This is the big match, right? Because do you get a cash in here?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Goldberg has been known to go over in these occasions, much to the chagrin of wrestling fans and especially the internet wrestling community. I myself, I think it's hilarious. So, hey, why not?
You know what? Me too. I find it every time he wins, I just go to Twitter just to see people losing their minds. I mean, it's hysterical.
It is. The meltdown on Twitter is almost as good as the card itself, quite frankly. Let's switch gears a little bit to AEW. You got their new show Rampage debuting this Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on TNT. When this was first announced that they were going to have a second show, my gut immediately goes, "Oh, are they ready for a second show?" Because I think about when Thunder came around for WCW. We've said it before, even before the brand split, Raw and SmackDown felt a little repetitive. So give me your thoughts. Can Rampage succeed and how?
As a 1 hour show, you do a 1 hour show with a big main event. I think if you book it really tight, it can. AEW is very good with pacing. For a new company, if you look at their pacing on their show, it's really done well. So I think, putting on a 1 hour show with commercial breaks, you got about 40 minutes, 45 minutes of content, right? Yeah, 45 minutes, 50 minutes of content. So you could put together something really good, but the question is, are they going to stick to being a show? I think initially you're going to have major matches, major main event matches, but, are they going to stay live? Initially, I heard yes, but and then eventually they're going to go to a taped show because logistically, financially, and for logistics with moving people around, it doesn't really make sense to have a Friday live show and move everybody again. Yeah. So, especially in this era where travel is still not that easy. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that they do something good where they profile some of these guys that you normally don't see in main event matches to kind of get them elevated, for lack of a better term. Having Kenny Omega face, trying to think of somebody up and coming that you don't really see on TV that much. Joey Janela again, right? Let's throw Joey Janela. Having that as a main event and having it, make Joey look good could work. I just don't know if they're going to have the long game with this to continue it every single week and putting on a main event match every single week.
I kind of like what you're saying, where it almost feels like the old school NWA Jim Crockett Promotions World Championship Wrestling that was on TBS way back in the 80s, where you had like, say, the Midnight Express taking on a tag team off the indie scene. I'll use one from here in Texas, Fly Def, the guys from Booker T School. And then you'll have a couple matches like that, and then you'll have a semi-name match as your main event. Obviously, the first one, Britt Baker and Red Velvet. So if they can do that and at the same time still make it, I guess, must-see viewing, especially with what, and I know not everybody tunes into YouTube with Dark and Dark Elevation. So if they can make it where this has that feel without feeling like, I can just catch up on, the highlights, I think you're right. It is interesting that you've got Rampage the following week in Chicago at the United Center. The Bulls play there. The Blackhawks play there. And of course, everything. They have done everything except outright say it. Should be seeing the debut of CM Punk in AEW. So it's one of those things where, again, the cynic in me goes, I'll believe it when I see it. What say you? I mean, strip away all the stuff and everything else. Do you, in your heart of hearts, believe that on AEW Rampage on the 20th in Chicago, you're going to see CM Punk walking through that tunnel?
Let me just say, imagine if he doesn't.
We just talked about wrestling Twitter melting down.
I know.
Oh my God.
I think that building is going to melt down. That's it for the United Center. I mean, it's over for that building. I would say I am 99% certain that he's going to be in that building. He's showing up. Now, I don't believe he's wrestling on that show. I don't anticipate him to wrestle. This is leading to that Chicago show, which I anticipate he's going to wrestle on that show, and it'll be a real big deal. That pay-per-view will draw much larger numbers. By the way, we saw what he was able to do with UFC. Even with his second fight in UFC, people were very engaged and interested. So, listen, he's a very controversial guy. He's a very charismatic. People like him, people hate him, but they still tune in. I would say as close to 100% as possible, certain that he's going to be there and at that show.
I hope so too. I mean, I love to see big things like that. I hope so too. But yeah, if by some chance he doesn't, oh my God.
I don't think AEW would allow the rumors to get to that point, because we've seen the negative press they got from that exploding mind death match,
and it wasn't their fault.
And it wasn't their fault, but they looked not my words, right? But they looked like fools to a lot of people that didn't really understand. Like, listen, the pyro didn't go off the way it was supposed to. It was a lot of issues. They're going to do it again, by the way, and they'll do it the right way this time. But that was an issue. There was something else that they did that didn't go over well. I can't remember what it was. There was a third one that they got a lot of criticism that it didn't work out for them.
Wasn't it Big Show or Paul White's debut or Christian's
that
debut?
was it. Yeah, that was it. People were, again, they thought CM Punk was showing up. They thought somebody really big was showing up. So even though AEW said, no, this is it, right? They made it very clear. When they realized that, oh man, the rumors are getting really hot, we got to back off from this. They did. They haven't done that with CM Punk. They've actually encouraged it even more with things that they're doing and they're saying. I mean, you saw the Ric Flair nod last week. That's not just Gallows going into business for himself and putting it together and saying, oh, well, this is what I did. This is all planned stuff, and they know what they're doing.
Two things before I let you go. First of all, we're going to have a 4-man commentary team. I don't think this is going to be the way it's going, for good. I'm sure they will pare it back to 3. But you got Excalibur, Mark Henry, who we know quite well here in the Austin area, Taz and Chris Jericho. I'm excited for Mark because I've sat with Mark at different events, and he and I will kind of do our own little back and forth on different matches. So I know what Mark can bring to the mic. Give me your take on a 4-man commentary booth and how long before it becomes a 3-man.
I don't even like a 3-man commentary booth. I like a 2-man booth, but AEW has done a very good job at these 3-man, the 3-man booth regularly every week, and adding a 4th, like a Chris Jericho or a Taz or an MJF whenever they go on. I think in case of Mark Henry's gotten some tremendous experience doing Busted Open Radio. Mm-hmm. My own guess, I think if he never did that, this position wouldn't happen. I know people that know him very well, and they say that he's a salt of the earth, this guy. He's a fantastic, fantastic human being, and he's very good at what he does. He puts his all into what he does. So I'm not concerned, but I do agree with you. I think it is going to be scaled to a 3-man booth, but, they've done a decent job so far.
They have, and yes, I will second every good thing to say about Mark. Frequent contributor to the radio station because he's huge Longhorn fan. So, and he knows his football too. I've been talking to him about doing a football podcast. And then finally, this question I've been asking a lot of people. So, we've seen where, Hangman may be moving away from the possible main event at All Out, challenging Omega. We'll find out who challenges Omega. It looks like it could be Christian Cage, maybe not. But I'm going to ask you, same thing I've asked a lot of people. Which belt does Omega lose first?
Oh, that's a great question. I would have him lose the Impact title first. Or actually, is he going to defend the AAA title anyway? Does that
He's
count?
supposed to be defending the AAA title at Triple Mania against Andrade, if I'm not mistaken.
At Andrade. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
thinking
know
that one might be the first one.
That could be the first. Impact second and AEW third.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't. I totally forgot about the Andrade matches coming up soon, like next week, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So very interesting. I don't know. I know that they got to get that title off of him. It's time to get that title off of him because obviously he had it and they didn't really do much because the pandemic happened. But I think your way is right. Lose the AAA title, lose the Impact title, and then eventually lose the AEW title.
Yeah, AEW is going to be last. I'm almost certain of that one. And my gut says, yeah, he'll drop the AAA title to Andrade. So, Andrew, tell everybody how they can find you and the Matt Men podcast.
You can always find me on Twitter at Andrew Zarian on Twitter. Matt Men Podcast also on Twitter. And we're available everywhere podcasts are available. If you use Apple Podcasts, you use Google, whatever, wherever you listen to your podcast, we're there. Just search Matt Men Podcast. Matt Men is 2 words, apparently. I didn't know that if you do 1 word, it doesn't come up. This is a whole new realization to me because people are like, where the hell's your show? And I'm like, I don't know. Where it's up there. I don't know. Matt Men Podcast, everywhere podcasts are available. Of course, we're also on YouTube. We do a show live every Thursday.
Sounds awesome. Andrew Zarian, follow him on Twitter at Andrew Zarian. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Matt Men Podcast. Andrew, man, great to chop it up with you. I wish you all the best. Wish everybody there at Matt Men and Wrestling Observer all the best. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. Whenever you want, I'll be there.